Welcome to the Creative Mississippi edition of the Mississippi Arts Hour. I'm Allison Winstead, Director of the Creative Mississippi Institute, the Mississippi Arts Commission's newest initiative in creative economy and creative placemaking. And you are tuned in to the agency's weekly show celebrating all things creative across our great state. Today we are going to talk about working in a creative occupation and growing that creative spirit not only as a business but into other opportunities to make a difference in our state. Tim Mask is Vice President of Brand Planning and Development with Maris Weston Baker advertising firm in Jackson, Mississippi. But he also has his hand in so many more creative arenas that show good things are happening in our state. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, Allison. Great to be here.
Well, okay, so I mentioned in the intro, you are, and this is a mouthful, and I thought I had a long title. It is Vice President of Brand Planning and Development at Maris Weston Baker, and we'll go into a little while. I call it an advertising firm. That kind of is expanding and changing, but we're going to call it advertising to start with.
Very good.
And so why don't we start with, what is a Vice President of Brand Planning and Development?
It's a made-up title.
Did you make it up?
No. I just said, give me the longest title that you've got, and I'll go with that. Brand planning and development simply means stepping back an organization or a company that either wants to develop, refine, or renew a brand that they have, looking at it first from the standpoint of the consumer or person that may need to use that, whatever that good or service is, and then filtering it through what messaging and what media channels best reach that person to communicate the message that the underlying brand wants to communicate.
And I think, now we do hear a lot more about brand, and especially with social media and technology
Yes.
But what is the bigger, just what is a brand? Kind of used to be what we called so many other things. But today, what does that mean if you brand something?
Sure. Well, first, let me say that I think that the term brand is used in a lot of instances when there really is no brand. We call products brands, and they're not really brands per se.
Right.
Brand is the underlying essence of whatever it is that you're trying to market or you're trying to communicate. And I like to say that to build a brand, you have to figure in every aspect of whatever that company or that product or that organization offers. It's everything from the mass media messaging, from television commercials that you see, to product placement, even down to the way that a receptionist may answer the phone. Everything needs to be reflective of what you want to communicate through that brand. I'll give you an example. Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines built a brand on being funny, on being customer oriented, and their flight attendants are very much so. Their pilots are funny over the speakers, but if, for instance, you called Southwest Airlines on a lost baggage claim and they were very, very rude to you, that would disrupt what you thought about the brand. So when a company builds a brand, they need to do it from not just the most outward-facing components of their communications, but all the way down the chain.
Well, how did you get into advertising and the work? I mean, it's a fairly, I don't say specialized field, but it is. I mean, it's kind of this niche. It's one of those places in the creative economy. It's one of our creative industries.
Sure.
Certainly advertising and the creative spirit and that.
We like to think so most of the time, yes.
We'll say nothing about, what happens in the coffee room.
You don't have to see how the sausage is made, just that it tastes good.
That's right. You are creative when it counts.
There you go.
So how did you get into that field? Did you know early on that it was something that you wanted to do?
I tell the story, and it's 100% true. And let this not be an example to any kids that are out there listening, but I picked my major in college based on what I needed the least amount of math for. And I'm a big supporter of our STEM programs, and I'm a big supporter of science and mathematics in schools. I was just not one that was going to benefit from it, nor would the workforce benefit from me being in it. So I ended up with a communications major. I attended one of our great community college systems here in Mississippi, and then went on to get my degree from an institution located here in Jackson with a major in mass communications and a minor in political science. I did some work for a gentleman who turned out to be the attorney for the firm that I work for now. And 15 years into it, my indentured servitude clause is almost up. No, it is a great job. I joke that I'm in marketing and advertising now, and I never took a class titled marketing or advertising in college. Lots of communications classes, lots of communication law classes. Just goes to show you that if you want to work within a creative economy, there is definitely an avenue. You don't have to do it through traditional means.
And sometimes it's even better.
Sometimes it is even better because you get a perspective that's not institutionalized.
And the things I know when I'm out working in the field in creative economy and placemaking, the things that resonate the most in communities are those connections that I've made of things that I have absolutely no education or schooling in. Because sometimes it actually, you put blinders on what you've learned. And sometimes I think the creative part of that is unlearning all of that and then starting to make those connections in different ways.
That's absolutely correct. And there have been lots of great creative speakers and thinkers on this issue that will say that you will not be creative unless you are prepared to be wrong. And I think that those blinders that a lot of us come out of our education with, we are almost conditioned to fear being wrong. That's the worst thing that can happen is if you're wrong.
When I talk to, I do a lot of talking to, my son is 15, and talking to kids about what they want to be and can they go into a creative field and what does that mean? And it doesn't always mean what you think it is. But the number one thing that I will tell them is fail big. Fail huge.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
And it's what you do in advertising every day.
That is great to hear that. And with those guidelines, I'm a raging success.
That's right.
Because I fail all the time.
But it's never a failure because you learn from it and you course correct and you go the next day and you figure out what that is. But that is creativity. That's the essence of it.
That is the essence of it. And some of the most creative products that we have or services that we have are a result of failure.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Creative Mississippi edition of the Arts Hour. I'm Allison Winstead, and we're talking today with advertising executive Tim Mask. And so tell me let me see if I get the quote right. It's really short. Imagination is more important than knowledge.
I was not aware there'd be a quiz.
See, pop quiz, fail big. Here we go. Smartest person on the face of the earth, Albert Einstein.
Very good.
So I think if he can say that, then we all should follow suit.
I agree.
So I don't know of anybody better to follow.
He did fairly well for himself.
Yeah, he probably took a few math classes.
He was a little more qualified to split the atom than I am.
Why don't you do that on like your weekend gig? So, okay, you work in brand, and I think, brand and marketing and tying it back into creative economy and what we talk about in arts all the time, it's story. It's who you are, it's your story, and it's your story as a business, and it's your story as a person. We all have personal brands, whether we know it or not. It's almost by default. You talk about companies that call things brands, but if you don't have a brand, you kind of do. It's just not good.
You do have a brand that's out of your control. Back to your original question about what is a brand, I think you just answered it. It is a story. It is a narrative. It's the first thing that comes to someone's mind when they think of you, when they think of your company, when they think of your product. That really is the essence of what a brand is, and that's what, from a creative company standpoint, we try to help craft and direct.
And it's all of those things put together. It's what you hear over the radio. It's what you see. It's the logo. It's the visual part of it. Does that support it? Does it clash with it?
It's even as far down to the types of sponsorships that your organization is involved with. It's
story and it's values. It's the values of your organization. And if you can make people tie into that, then you attract people who tie into your story and your values, and that's your customer base.
Absolutely. That's very important.
Maybe I should have been in advertising.
We may have a slot open.
I'm just saying, that creative part of it. So, you do brand planning, all of these multimedia things that are changing kind of exponentially.
Yes, rapidly.
To
understate.
How do you keep up with all of the new things? I kind of look at it through my son, and there's always a new app. And about the time I figure out one, I'm already antiquated because it's always something new. So in a business that relies on social media, how do you keep up with that?
What I've found is you will go insane if you try to keep up with the way things are changing and every new thing that is available. I've found that it's more valuable to try to find specific solutions to issues rather than just keep up with the overall landscape of what's happening with media, what's happening with social media, what's happening in a digital environment. It's good to keep up with that in a macro sense, but I would say down to the level of trying to see what the latest app is, wait until you need something for a solution and then do some investigation. Else you will be working more than a 24-hour day, I'm afraid.
And if you can do that, then wow, you've got some other job to be doing out there. So you do all of that. What do you do, like when you come into the office? We'll say 8-ish, because creative people.
Yes, and my boss is listening. I want to make sure
7:45. So what do you do in the office when you hit the door? And I'm sure it's probably never the same thing consecutively.
It's not, but I try to take some time every morning to, and this sounds very old school, but to write.
Yeah.
It's not old school because it's done in a blog format, but to write and get some ideas out. We've got this interesting thing that we've started at my agency. We call it a creative cafe. And what that means is I put a coffee maker in a corner of my office, but in order to get a cup of coffee in the morning, you have to come. I've got a whiteboard in my office. You have to write one truly innovative idea on the whiteboard.
You blackmail people for caffeine.
That is correct. You would be amazed at the ideas that you can get from people's craving for caffeine.
That's right. Hold them hostage. So you work in the creative economy. Advertising is one of what we call the creative industries. Your job is one of those that we counted on almost the 65,000 with the creative economy study. But what makes the creative economy creative is all of the other things those creative positions bring to the community. That's really the breadth of creative economy. We've got people working in it, but it's all of those other things. And we're going to talk about some of those other things that you're involved with coming up in our next segment. But first, let's take a musical interlude with a true Mississippi treasure and one you requested, Miss Cassandra Wilson, way back from 1996 from the whatever they called it in 1996, record, album, CD, New Moon Daughter, and this is Death Letter.